I'm Austrian. I live and work in New York. I live and work in New York, and I came here yesterday to this beautiful place. Now, in fact, my mother was born in Klagenfurt. And whenever I go to this place, Carinthia, I have to think about the Carinthia that I've been experiencing for the first 16 years of my life every summer. Carinthia was the place my parents and my mother took us, whether we wanted or not, for every single summer vacation. And my mother was telling me about this world, a world that in my childish eyes looked like this. And she would tell me about a world full of opportunity. Now here we are, 45 years later. This is actually not New York City. But we live in a world that is driven by opportunity, or rather challenge. Urbanization, wars, conflicts, diseases, all sorts of challenges to humankind, to our societies, that really look to me and to my children more as a world of challenges than a world of opportunities. And I start wondering, what did they tell me in those beautiful 16 dull summer years of vacation? Were these myths? Were these lies? Or is there actually a world full of opportunity out there? And I start to wonder, what is actually driving the world as we experience it today? Now, I believe there are three things that make up the world and that make up this paradigm shift that we're going through as society these days. Data is the first one. There are billions of sensors in everything we do, in everything we use, in everything we get to in the world. And all these sensors deliver data. And that data, mostly unstructured, creates enormous explosion of storage requirements. But that data is also a raw material that can help you, if you analyze it, to start anticipating and acting instead of reacting to something that you see happening out of instinct or out of observation. So it's a huge repository. It's a huge asset that is driving the way we live and work today, and we're collecting data every day with every move. We're creating megabytes, gigabytes of data every second, just with our friends, the photographers in this room, by taking pictures, by capturing voice, by capturing movements, by probably capturing the temperature in this room. So we're creating data as we walk. Now, the other thing that is really driving us today is cloud. Now, cloud is not a fancy game. It's not a hype. It's not something that has been created by the industry to make people buy more. Cloud is really about connectivity 24/7. 4 billion of smartphones out there in the world. There are places in India, in Africa, there are more phones than water closets. That's a huge penetration, but it's a huge asset. There are trillions of devices that connect to the internet today. So how can we make sure we leverage that connectivity? We manage that kind of network of people who want to communicate, people who want to share, and people who want to have access. And that takes me to the third key driver of our society today, and that is our own behavior. Watch your own children. Watch yourself as you communicate. We want to be mobile, we want to be secure, but we also want to be social. Social is driving the behavior of anything we do today, and it drives the requirements and the infrastructure that needs to be in place to support all that mobile and social applications that we're using. So what I came to the conclusion is, this world, this society we live in, this world full of challenges, is actually challenged by itself because it is going through a disruptive phase. We are disrupted, society is disrupted, organizations are disrupted. What I mean by disruption, you see up here with a couple of examples. WhatsApp, a company of 55 employees, being acquired by Facebook for $19 billion. Now, why is that? Is that because WhatsApp has a couple of 100 million of users? No. It's because WhatsApp has successfully disrupted a market that is over 100 billion, which is the telecommunications market and the wireless industry. Because it has basically stopped a very profitable business from existing, and that's the SMS business. It's a disruptive force of WhatsApp to an entire industry that has caused the paradigm shift that Facebook got interested in. Would you guess which one is the most popular mobile payment application in the United States? It's not from a bank, it's Starbucks. Starbucks is providing a feature functionality where you can buy stars and you can give it to customers, to give it to friends, to give it to colleagues, peers, and it's the most popular payment application in the world, in the US. That is embarrassing to the banks in the United States because it is taking one of their core business models away. 5 million financial transactions every week just on Starbucks. Uber, very timely. They were booed in a couple of European countries, in Germany, in the United Kingdom, because they are getting in competition with the old-fashioned taxi industry by providing transportation on a voluntary basis. Well, when you talk to the Uber management, they will laugh at you saying, we couldn't care less than about taxi drivers. We're not after the taxi industry. We have started to understand that behavior has changed and people don't necessarily want to have car transportation, they want to have mobility. And mobility is something that is multi-billion of dollars, much bigger than the taxi industry. Many analysts think that Uber has a higher potential than the 3 largest German car manufacturers together. Higher potential than the Toyota company in the market. And then finally, Netflix, launched here in Austria a couple of days ago. I'm a consumer of Netflix in New York. Great streaming platform. What Netflix is doing is it successfully disrupts an entire industry. So I'm using these examples here to give you a flavor of how disruptive cloud, data, and our social behavior really are. They are entirely disruptive to the way we live and work. They are entirely disruptive to the organizations that give us jobs, or that we want to create jobs for, or that we come up with entrepreneurial ideas for. It's disruptive force that is going through every one of our lives as we sit in this room and as we leave this room. Now, how do we respond to this disruptiveness? Well, I would say in history, there is 3 traditional approaches mankind has tried on these problems, on these challenges, on these disruptions. One, the oldest one, is a philosophical one, started in Greece, trying to treat it with philosophy, trying to understand what are the ethical behaviors humanity needs to apply to address these challenges. Another one is psychology. So how can we change our own individual behavior? What is driving us? How can we change the way we consume, the way we demand, the way we request? And then finally, the third one, and I wouldn't be standing here if I wouldn't believe that one is an equal opportunity solution to the challenges, is technology. How can we build and create more infrastructure to respond to all these requirements? Now, I would argue that any of those 3 is not a sufficient solution. But we really have to look through a combination of those 3 different approaches as we go forward. Ethicpreneurs, as a theme of a conference, couldn't be more topical. Combining philosophy with psychology, with business, is the only sustainable way to address the challenges we have in the world and convert them to opportunities. I would call this an era of becoming smart. Now, there are no stupid people in this room, of course, but smart means we are using more of what we already have instead of keep creating more and more and more and more. I'll give you a couple of examples later on, but keep that thought. Using and better using what we already have as society, as mankind. Using assets you see on the left side of this chart, which are in short supply, accepting that these are in short supply, but addressing the short supply with the assets you have on the right side of this chart, which are not of short supply. In fact, They're replenishing themselves every day, every minute. We are growing, we are drowning in some of these, as John Naisbitt said recently, talking about data as a raw material. So any of these assets on the right side are equally important raw material to use to address the challenges we have in the world. But they are replenishing themselves. They are not in short supply. We're not running out of provisioning these supplies. So we have to use, in a smart way, what is on the left side, what is on the right side, to address the challenges on the left side of this chart. That means quantity. That means being smart. That means shifting from quantity into a quality type of approach. And we have to get it right in cities. Why is that? 60% of the world's population live in cities today. By 2024, China will have 221 cities with more than 1 million inhabitants. We have 35 of those in Europe today. If we don't get it right in the cities, we will fail. We have to get it right in the cities because that's where people live, that's where people go to, that's where people have hope and expectations, and they have a right to find the infrastructure that they need in the cities to make their dreams come true. But also a city is an ecosystem, a small microsystem of how the world works together. In any city you have domains that work together. You have utilities, you have a health system, you have security, safety. Anything you have out there in the world, you have happening in a city. And in order to be successful, to address the challenges of a city, you need to create governance and connectivity. Times are gone where departmental heads of a city can apply pride to the data they have. You have to create governance where they are willing to share, where transportation companies willingly share their data with other organizations in the city, with third-party developers who can create great apps with a lot of value add. New York City, 2 years ago, has decided to put all its data around public transportation on a public portal. And there is like 20, 30 applications out there, commercial applications, that make use out of that data. And that is all the creativity that a city cannot develop itself, but it needs a young entrepreneurial community to take use and make use out of that data. But you gotta make sure you have that connectivity because there are dependencies in a city on any of these domains. Stay with that very simple graph here. If you have better water quality, you have better health. If you have better health, you have better security. You have less crime. If you have less transportation problems and traffic jams, you have less pollution. You have better health. You see where I'm going? You've got to have these connectivities, these interdependencies, well depicted for a city in order to drive city management in a smarter and in a better way. And then the other one, another key requirement is, if we want to realize what smartness means, if we want to realize projects that are built on smartness, we've got to have a democratic internet. We've got to have a democratic internet that is not registering or differentiating access, but gives the same level of access, everyone, everywhere, to the same type of data. It's got to be a democratic access to the internet in order to allow the feature functionality of a smarter planet to really work. Now finally, why should we care? Why should you care? Why should you listen for 18 minutes to this presentation? Because I think the results of a smarter planet are really touching. They are really relevant. Let me take you through 4 very simple examples, and I could go on, and Nikki would kick me off the stage if I would do that. First one is, if you look into neonatal infections, early birth, big problem. 1 out of 10 birth is an early birth. 1 out of 10 early birth die. Big problem according to the WHO. So what can you do with that? You cannot expect the doctors in intense care or the babies in their intense care units to go through additional examinations, to go through additional measures. But you can make better use of what you already have. We've been working with the University in Toronto, and we've been looking in the hospital and in the neonatal station in that hospital through an analysis where we figured out 56 megabytes of data are taken from a neonatal child every day. Skin temperature, blood values, blood temperature, blood sugar, different values, every day, 56 megabytes. And where do they go? They go into, the best of cases, an electronic act. And that's it. So what if you could actually start applying analytics? And you should try to start to understand patterns. And you can start to understand infections before they develop symptoms. And what we could prove in this project is you can actually show 24 hours before a disease would develop symptoms, what kind of disease that child will pick up, what kind of infection the child will pick up. Now, 24 hours in intense care is a matter of life or death. Significant impact, touching project. What if we can solve traffic problems, like in Singapore, in London, in Stockholm, many other places in the world, by looking into the existing road network? It's so easy to help congestion by building an additional road. And we all know by experience, half a year after the road is opened, the streets are clogged again. So what if we can make better use of the existing road network without building an additional square meter of concrete, building a single additional bridge, by just analyzing traffic patterns, by using the connectivity of individual traffic with mass transportation, changing behavior of people moving from individual traffic to mass transportation, and driving a toll system that is depending on traffic load in a certain time on a certain part of the city network. If you do that, you can actually reduce traffic and pollution and accidents and all the impacts you have on society by 20%, 30%, without building an additional single road. Let me give you one more example, crime. Most cities in the world have a challenge around crime and security because with the economic crisis, the budget of the cities have been eroding or been at least static, whereas at the same time unemployment has fueled a higher crime rate. So what can you do about that? Putting more policemen on the streets, putting more police cars on the streets? That is not a sustainable solution. You cannot keep growing linear. What you have to do is make use of what you know in the city where crime will happen. And we know today that crime is a statistical pattern. And if you take data that already exists, and that is as simple as lightning data of a city, demographic data, data about traffic, you can actually start predicting where crime is most likely to happen next. And you put your scarce resource to where that accident or that incident is going to happen next. And then finally, touching for all of us, food. What if without changing genomes, what if without doing DNA modifications, we can just grow more crop by having an intelligent watering system? By using data analytics of existing fields and trying to understand if you improve, you will waste less water, but you will get more crop yield out of the same field. We've been doing this with vineyards, we've been doing this with crop, very successful, 20-30% of reduction of the actual input and about 20-30% increase of the same output. So you get the spiel here. It's really all about trying to do better and more efficient output with less or the same input. Trying to better use what you already have and applying more of a quality approach than really a quantity approach. So what I wanted to get across today is first, if you think that all these changes are going to go away, I guess you're wrong. Maybe after the printing press and after the steam engine, we're going through the third major societal change. And this change is for real and it's going to be for lasting. And we have to take a quality approach. We have to take an innovative approach. We cannot keep building infrastructure. We have to change the way we use infrastructure. We have to get it right in the cities. And for that, we have to get the cities being open spaces that share information all together. We have to give everyone the same access, whether in Africa, in Latin America, or in Europe, North America, or in Asia. Everybody needs to have access to the same information at the same place where they need to have that information. And finally, and the most important thing out of all those 18 minutes, pick something out of this that you believe matters to you and matters to society. Because if you like what you're doing, you're going to be best of class in what you're doing. If you like what you're doing, you're going to be successful, and that will multiply what you do to a lot of other people around you. And with that, you will successfully address challenges and you will successfully convert challenges to real opportunities, to a world full of opportunity. Thank you.